Welcome to Behind the Claim, the podcast where we move past forms, policies, and payouts and dig into a bigger story of what really happens behind workers' compensation. Because let's be honest, a claim isn't just paperwork. It's a human being, a workplace, and often a culture that needs a shift. So today I'm excited because we are talking about the people's side of workers' compensation. And my guest is someone who lives and breathes this work. She's an industrial psychologist and workplace counselor from the Northwest University in Potchefstroom, South Africa. Professor Lene Graupner, welcome.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you for the invite. It's wonderful to be here today. Thank you.
Prof Lene, thank you for joining me. I know our listeners are in for a treat. What do you think?
Definitely. No, definitely. Just from what we spoke about beforehand, I am excited about what we're going to talk about.
As well. Yes, we can jump into the crux of the matter for today. You know what? People often hear workers' comp and think, no, admin, red tape, money going out. But I believe both you and I know it's actually a mirror. It shows what's really happening inside a workplace. So from your perspective, what do you see when you look behind the claim?
Yes, I think you said it when you made the introduction. It's all about the human being. For me, that's who I see. So of course, there's a lot of paperwork and documentation and legislation, and all of that is very, very important. But you are dealing with a human being often who has been injured, who fell ill, who is in a life crisis. And and that injury and that illness leads to changes in their lives, and that person needs to be supported.
Wow, exactly. It's not just about injury. It's about how people feel treated. You can almost tell if a company values people or not by how they handle one single claim.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the value of the individual. And yeah, definitely. I think the ethic of care, kind of a buzzword nowadays, and a lot more focus on the worth of the employee. But still, I do think more focus needs to be placed on treating the individual as a human being in a crisis at that stage and providing the necessary support.
I love that. We need to provide the necessary support. Now, moving on the culture side, I would like us to first start with the culture, the workplace culture. I've seen employees come back from leave, or even let's say they were booked off for an injury, and say, I felt invisible, like my company just wanted me back at work, not me as a human being. How do you think leaders should shift from tick the box response to culture of real care?
Yeah, the thing is, people don't often know how to respond to someone who has gone through a major illness or injury. So they kind of just ignore. So on the one hand, you have that kind of ignorance. But on the other hand, it is necessary to support this individual who might feel alienated, isolated. And from a leader's perspective, it's so important to provide the reassurance. We're happy you're back, even beforehand, to make contact during this time that they were perhaps on sick leave or on leave, to make contact and just to find out how are you doing and what do you need, can we provide support, and communicate often. And then when providing that support when they're back on site is so important, the necessary resources, which is not always only physical resources, having the right tools or equipment, it's also support, supervisor support, colleague support. So and regular check-ins, I think that is very, very important.
Regular check-ins and supervisors, I agree, because they are the front line. They also need to be sort of like trained on how to deal with such matters.
Absolutely. I think psychological first aid training is absolute must for all managers or persons in leadership position, HR even, human resource management. So just to know that first steps and how to communicate, how to put someone at ease, and also how to manage the person's absence, because those that stay behind also wonder and also need support.
Wow, and we normally forget about that part, that when someone is not there,
Yeah.
the ones that are left behind, in what state of mindset are they? And
Yeah.
especially when they see how the injured employee is being treated by the employer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That
And
makes
what's interesting about not communicating effectively is people create then stories about to fill in the gaps, of what they don't know.
Mhm.
So to communicate with those as well, to say, person X, Y, Z has been booked off. This is what happened, and he will return on this and this date, possibly, so that everybody knows, without divulging very personal detail. You don't need to share personal detail, but just so that everybody knows what is the status quo.
Wow, really, that makes so much sense. And in SMEs, especially in heavy industries, the owner is often an HR, the finance, the safety
Yeah, yeah,
officer, everything. So sometimes,
everything. Yeah,
yeah, so sometimes it's not out of bad intentions. It's just that they're overwhelmed. But that
yeah.
little moment of care can change everything from loyalty to morale.
And I think there's also a benefit in the owner being kind of a lot of roles, assuming a lot of roles, because there's still that being in touch with the employee, where, with the major company organization, it's kind of detached. So, management is there somewhere. And you kind of get a card or an email, get well soon, something like that, if ever. So I think there's a benefit in the smaller SMEs, the more the personal contact, if you can call it that.
Yeah, I love the personal contact, especially when I see where you're coming from, that if in SMEs, when the owner is everything, they even get to a point of being able to walk in the floors within the premises and
Yeah,
see
yeah,
what is happening, listen to
yeah,
conversations in the corridors. That
yeah, yeah,
that's another superpower I think that they have.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so now looking on the safety side, everyone thinks of helmets, boots, and hard hats, but
Mm,
there's also psychological safety. I think you mentioned it
mm,
earlier, which
mm.
can be bought at the hardware store, for instance, like
Yeah,
the boots
yeah,
and all that. What are
yeah.
some red flags that a workplace um, is not psychologically safe?
Yes, it's so important that question, because it's increasingly there's an emerging focus in, for example, the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and the COIDA, Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Diseases Act, on going beyond physical safety, also looking at the psychological safety. Of course, that means that someone feels safe enough to share. To make mistakes, not
Mhm.
to and admit that they made a mistake, and there's no negative consequences. So for me, then red flags would typically then be when mistakes may not be made, when there's a fear for speaking up, or fear for making mistakes, and if there's repercussions. So the one employee will then witness and see, but this employee spoke up, and this is what happened to them. I'm not going to say anything. So in effect, voices are silenced. And for me, I would definitely be on the lookout for employees not sharing, keeping back, isolating themselves, avoid providing feedback, even if there's an open invitation, less of an open culture, withdrawal, uncertain behavior. So those I think typically would be red flags.
Wow, and we usually overlook those employees that are quiet. We never really focus on them to ask ourselves, Are you a reserved person, or what's keeping you quiet? Or rather, even if it's someone that is well known within the company, but now
Yeah.
all of a sudden they're reserved. So
Yeah, and you get
yeah,
the quiet quitting where
yes,
they just,
exactly.
dwindle down and leave in the end,
A lot of
because it's
leave.
not safe. Yeah.
Yeah, really, I think psychological safety needs to really, really be put out there more, because when we think of safety, we usually think of the physical side of it, not
Yeah.
necessarily the psychological. So it's very interesting to look in that point of, when someone is quiet, don't just ignore that. Don't just
Yes, and especially if something happened, or people are talking about a specific issue and someone's asked for feedback,
mm,
and then just says no, I'm okay. I think it's necessary
and
to
then withdraw
focus
from
on
work.
psychological safety. Yeah.
Mm, wow. And if we ignore these red flags, guess where they will show up? They will show up in the claims office,
Yeah.
thereby HR, people getting hurt,
Yeah.
mistakes happening, stress becoming illness. So in a way, thinking of it, in a way, I'll say psychological safety is the invisible PPE. Do you agree with me?
Absolutely, yeah. You can't always see if someone is suffering or in distress.
Mm,
And what happens is psychological distress just flows over into physical distress. You get the headaches and the high blood pressure and insomnia and all of that. So it
mm,
does eventually lead to other type of conditions as well. So it's so important, especially if it's severe stress or distress,
mm.
trauma even, to really be on the lookout to provide. And of course, it's also under legislation that someone feels safe, and that includes psychological safety.
Wow. I think we can go on and on about the psychological
Yeah.
safety, really, because I'm getting fascinated about it. I'm thinking about so many things. But I think one day, who knows, there could be a session where we'll just focus only on psychological safety. But
Yeah, absolutely.
now I would like us to bring it back home to productivity,
Mhm.
because every SME owner listening right now is asking, or rather, I will assume they're asking themselves, how does this affect my bottom line? Because I've seen it where employees come back from a claim and don't feel supported. Productivity tends to drop, sometimes permanently. So, from your counseling experience, what are practical ways SMEs can support employees so they come back engaged, not resentful?
Yeah. Well, of course, I will say workplace counseling is one practical way. And for me, in a way, SMEs are in a good position to have like an on-site counselor.
Mhm.
For example, a counselor in terms of doing consultancy work, and they can, on a regular basis, just check in and see if someone can be supported. That's one way. Another way is really just those physical check-ins from management, from someone significant, who reach out, who provide feedback, who keep the employee in the loop, in where the process is and what the flow of the process is, and also support for the family, because we often forget about them, who
Yeah.
also would be suffering during this time. So I would say definitely for me, containment, to provide that support, that counseling, and not just to say, tell me if you need counseling, but to go ahead and arrange it, and to say we have this person Friday morning on site, dedicated room, all is confidential. Make use of the person, or off site, if it's better that way, to go and make an appointment with such a person. The thing is, research really shows, all of the research that we are busy with and doing, that well-being and performance are linked. So when a staff member feels taken care of, motivated, they functioning well, performance goes up and they are really performing well. And similarly, when someone does not feel valued, when they are distressed, when things are not as it should be, performance usually is the first way that you can see that. And then what we want to do is we want to implement a performance improvement plan and tell them, we're going to do A, and then we want B, and then C, and then we want D, where in the end, it's actually more psychological, just to provide that emotional support, without any consequence or feedback needed, just to say, normalize it, just to say, this is what happened, this injury, this illness, this situation, and this is the support we are offering. Let me leave it there first. Can go on and
Wow.
on.
I love the idea of having a counselor on site, because we never look at it in that way. And sometimes it's just a conversation, a check-in,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and the payoff. I mean, people who feel seen and valued, that's productivity goal at the end of the day for the owner. It is really
Yes,
having
yes.
that conversation. So I would like, I'm thinking of so many questions at the moment, but I will hold some with the hope that one day we will have a second round, because I'm really enjoying our conversations. I'm also personally learning a lot from what we are discussing today. So for
Awesome.
now, yes. So I would like us to give our SME leaders some take-home goal. If you could give them one simple practice to start today that would strengthen culture, safety, or even productivity, or even three of them, what would it be?
Well, there's so much that I can mention. Let me first mention this. There's a theory, we call it the job demands resources theory. I write about it a lot. But it just makes so much sense for me. When I sit with a client, I can literally hear the demands are high, the resources is sufficient or are sufficient. So I am coping, but I am in distress, in counseling session, and the employee is fine. Or you're sitting with an employee and they're saying the demands are high, even so that I suffered an injury, and the resources are not there. I'm not getting support. I don't know where my supervisor is, colleagues are talking behind my back, and then you hear there's no support, no resources. So one aspect would really be just to focus on if the employee has what he or she needs. And there's different ways to do that. One is a simple questionnaire survey that you can do. We call it a well-being survey. And that's also one way to track performance, to see if your employees are coping well. So that's one way, in a scientific manner, to determine if they do have what they need. Another one that I really feel passionate about is to lead by example, to really be that person, to openly talk about well-being, even your own, to say, you know what, I'm at the end of my good decisions for the day because I'm tired. I need to switch off, to be that person, just to say, here's the boundaries, and let's look after our own well-being. And similarly, to communicate that to employees as well. Empathic communication is another one, to really listen. Not only listen, hear. What is this employee telling you really? What's behind what he's saying? Yeah, just a few.
Make assumptions. Don't make assumptions. Hear what
Yeah,
they're
absolutely. Absolutely.
beautiful, beautiful. You've mentioned it so lovely. Listening, I really love how you gave us practical take home things. I believe the SMEs would really implement this. And I would also love to add this. I was thinking when you're talking now that next time when the SME sees a claim on their desk, they shouldn't just sign it. They should just pause and ask themselves, what is this claim telling us about our
Yeah,
culture, our safety, our productivity, or even the system within the workplace? I believe
yeah,
that's
yeah.
where transformation will begin.
Yes, Absolutely, absolutely. I think just to ask yourself the question, what really happened here?
Mm.
And is this person okay? I think you can assume he's not okay if there's a claim on your desk. And to your, like you said, not assume, but to take action.
Wow. Now, Prof Lene, on a lighter note, if you could wave now a magic wand and change one thing about workplace culture across, especially heavy industries, what would you change and why?
You know what I really wish for, if I can use my magic wand, to normalize emotional support, to say it is okay to not be okay, and to see that, to acknowledge it, and to provide support. You know, what I often get is someone would say, you know, we've arranged counseling for this person, he's going to come and see you. Then the client makes an appointment with me. The first thing he would say is, there's nothing wrong with me. You know, I can sort this out myself, but my workplace thought I should come and see you. And that always makes me feel so, it's not, there's nothing wrong with you. We just, every person gets to some stage in your life where you either in a crisis, stress was too much, you need to offload that emotional baggage or cognitive baggage even, and make it lighter, and to normalize that, to say it is okay. You know, we often get people being sent for coaching. Executive coaching is a huge thing. We don't do that with counseling. It's better to go for coaching than for counseling.
Wow.
But it's not okay to go for counseling, because counseling by implication means something's wrong, which often happens during coaching as well. It's not always said so explicitly.
Mm. Wow. And I totally love that. I totally love that. And it's always small changes that make a big difference. Just small changes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, before we wrap up, we had a lovely session. I really enjoyed every minute of this conversation. So before we wrap up,
Me too, so much. Thank you.
let's get to know you outside work with a quick speed round. Are you ready? I'm just going to ask you
I'm
three.
ready.
Anything that just pops, just say it. Ready?
Okay, let's
Yes.
do it.
If you weren't an industrial psychologist, what would you be?
A dancer.
Wow.
Yeah.
People.
I love dancing. I can't dance that well, but I love dancing.
Wow, that's interesting. Second question. It's summer though, but people still drink coffee and tea. So coffee or tea?
Coffee, definitely.
Is it? I'm more of a tea, but I'm trying
I do
to
both, but
push
if you
myself.
force me to choose, I will choose coffee.
Yes, even myself, if I have to choose, I choose tea, but I drink both. And the last
Yeah.
one hobby or interest people would be surprised to know about you.
Oh, I don't think it will be a surprise, really. I love gardening. So I love designing. I forever design our garden, do new things. Yeah, so I would say that's a hobby. It's not a surprise, really. It's so ordinary, but it's something I enjoy. It helps me to just de-stress.
Yeah, so you literally do it yourself or just the
Yes,
design?
yes. No, do it myself. I love that feeling of, you know, the soil off
Ah.
with nice covering on my hands, and then I take it off.
Oh, yeah, no, that there's an element of a surprise there that going out, touch the soil. Not a lot of people prefer it to be dirty, but I also love at some point,
Yeah, I
forget
love it.
about the
Love it.
cleanliness, just go
Yeah.
out there, get your hands dirty. I love that. Uh,
And another one that's perhaps a bit surprising is I love to binge watch series, crime series. I literally have to stop myself and say, you have to get up and get some exercise now. This has been going on for too long. yeah, that's when I completely relax and de-stress.
Yeah, but sometimes it's necessary just to sit, relax, because I believe at the university where you're at, maybe it gets too busy at times. So,
It does. No, it does. It has its busy seasons. Now is one specifically.
but you're allowed to rest. I'm giving you the permission. You need to rest.
Thank you so much, Lisa. But now I'm excited to hear about your hobbies, and I hear you like tea, but please share. I would also like to know.
Interesting. I'll flip your coin. Yes. For me, what I love to do is I'm very active. I'm very, very active. So I love outdoors. You can go, it can be hiking, it can be camping.
Oh.
And when I mean camping, I mean the hardcore camp inside a tent, not these modern camping of sleeping in a chalet. No, the real
Glamping.
is I like putting myself out there.
Oh, lovely. That sounds wonderful.
Yes.
That
At
sounds
times it can be
wonderful.
scary, can be scary at times, but it's a nice
Yeah,
feeling. Yeah. So, Prof,
yeah,
thank you so
yeah.
much for
Just out
sharing.
there in nature.
Exactly, in nature. We just need
Yeah,
to sometimes de-stress, get out of the
yeah,
work zone and just forget about everyday life and just
absolutely.
nature. Yay. Oh, really, we had a lovely chat, Prof. Thank you so much for your wisdom. You've shown us that workers' compensation isn't just about injury and return to work. It's a chance to strengthen culture, build safety, and even fuel productivity. Any final words for our listeners?
Absolutely. Thank you for the wonderful talk. And I really want to just add to you, it is about the worker in workers' compensation. And yes, the compensation and the admin goes with it. But
Yeah,
really what they are going through needs our attention. And we need to focus more on what we can do better to support employees going through such an ordeal.
I love that. We need to bring the worker within workers' compensation. Lovely, lovely, lovely. I love it. Can I steal it?
You can, obviously, you can, please.
Thank you so much, Prof. And to our
Thank
listeners,
you, Lisa.
thank you. To our listeners, remember every claim tells a bigger story. If you listen closely, it can guide you towards a safer, stronger, and more sustainable workplace. This was Behind the Claim. I'm your host, Lisa. Until next time, keep building workplaces where people and businesses thrive.